Hello ladies and gentlemen, if you are new here, kindly subscribe the channel, for further fruitful videos. The Bible is not about God. Are they still controlling us? In a small town, tucked away in the valleys of history, there lived a curious young man named Samuel, who, after years of questioning, began to unravel truths that no one else dared to whisper, truths that seemed to shift the foundation of everything he'd ever known, everything he'd been taught since childhood. He had heard the stories, had seen the religious rituals, had memorized the verses, but somewhere, deep inside, a voice stirred, asking, what if the Bible is not what they claim it is? What if it's not about God at all? Samuel spent nights scouring ancient texts, reading through the scriptures, feeling the weight of each word, each passage. With a growing sense of discomfort, he read of kings, of wars, of empires rising and falling, of people searching, praying, hoping, but he found something disturbing, something buried beneath the ink at the hand of human control, manipulation, and power. It wasn't the divine that struck him, it was the very human need to control others, to shape minds and souls in their image. The more Samuel read, the more he felt the strings of power tightening around the world, around humanity, around his very own life. Was it possible that the stories, the parables, and the doctrines weren't a guide to salvation, but a tool to control, to keep the masses in check, to bind their minds with chains of fear and obedience, making them believe in an all-powerful being, while the true power rested in the hands of those who wielded the narrative? He had seen the signs, heard the whispers, and noticed the patterns. Religion, so deeply intertwined with politics, had been used for centuries as a way to dominate, to silence those who dared to question, to manipulate entire societies into believing that they were beneath a higher power, a power that was, in reality, wielded by mere mortals. The Bible, which was supposed to be the Word of God, had been hijacked, Samuel thought, twisted into something far more sinister, a vehicle for control. The divine message was lost, replaced by an intricate web of rules, regulations, and rituals designed to maintain the status quo. The rulers of the world had hidden the true meaning, making people believe that their suffering was part of a greater plan, that their obedience was necessary for salvation. And still, centuries later, people clung to this belief, trapped in a cycle of fear and servitude. But Samuel, now awake, now aware, refused to remain silent. He wondered how many others felt the same stirring, the same rebellion against the system that had long been in place. How many others had been taught that they were worthless, that their existence was just a means to an end, a way to keep the powerful on top, keeping them rich, keeping them in control, keeping them from questioning, from rising up. The battle, Samuel realized, was not against God, it was against the forces that had twisted the message of love, of freedom, of true salvation, into a means of domination. The question wasn't whether God existed, but whether humanity could break free from the chains of those who had long controlled them, disguised as righteous shepherds, but truly wolves in sheep's clothing. As he stood in the center of his quiet town, the sounds of the church bell ringing in the distance, Samuel knew he had a choice. He could continue to live in ignorance, blind to the manipulation of history, or he could stand up, ask the questions that had never been asked, and challenge the forces that still sought to control him and the rest of the world. Samuel's eyes grew clear, his mind sharper, as the truth settled deep within him. The Bible was not about God, it was about power, control, and the struggle for freedom. And perhaps, just perhaps, it was time for humanity to awaken, to break free, and to write a new story, one that didn't rely on manipulation, one that embraced the true nature of human spirit and freedom. The question lingered in the air, heavy and undeniable: are we still being controlled? The Bible, in many ways, has been used as a tool for control. It's not just a sacred text, it's a powerful instrument that has shaped entire societies, dictated laws, and influenced the course of history. For centuries, rulers, governments, and institutions have used the Bible to maintain power, control minds, and enforce obedience. The question is, how did this happen? Why did something meant to guide, uplift, and inspire, become a means of domination? The Bible, as we know it today, was compiled over centuries. Different groups and leaders selected what to include, what to exclude, and how to interpret the scriptures. This process, while often justified as preserving divine truth, was also a way to establish control. When certain passages were highlighted and others ignored, it allowed those in power to shape the message in ways that suited their needs. The Bible became a tool for creating a specific narrative, one that kept the masses in check. The most significant part of this control came from how the Bible was used to instill fear, fear of divine wrath, fear of sin, fear of eternal damnation. These elements were emphasized to make people feel helpless, dependent on their religious leaders to interpret God's will. The leaders, in turn, gained authority. They were seen as the only ones who could bridge the gap between the divine and the human, making themselves indispensable to society. People were taught that their salvation depended on following the rules laid out in the scriptures, rules often interpreted by those in power. But this was not just about religion, it was about control over every aspect of life. Political leaders tied themselves to the Bible, presenting their authority as divinely ordained. Kings and emperors were often seen as God's representatives on earth. The Bible became a way to justify their actions, no matter how harsh, because it was framed as God's will. Those in power used it to demand unquestioning loyalty, to silence dissent, and to keep their subjects passive. In addition, the Bible often emphasized the concept of suffering. People were taught that hardship and pain were part of God's plan, that suffering was a test of faith. This created a mindset that accepted suffering as inevitable, that no matter how unjust the system, it was a divine test. This belief kept people in their place, convincing them that resistance or rebellion was against God's will. By teaching people to accept their suffering, those in power ensured that their control remained unchallenged. Moreover, the Bible's structure itself reinforced this control. The clear division between the clergy and the laity created a hierarchical system, where only a select few had the knowledge and authority to interpret the Word of God. This left the masses dependent on the clergy, who, in many cases, were the ones with the power. The Bible's complex and sometimes ambiguous language allowed for various interpretations, but the ruling elite often decided what those interpretations should be, using it to serve their agenda. In conclusion, the Bible has been used as a tool for control by those who wield power, through manipulation of its contents, instilling fear, justifying suffering, and creating a hierarchical system. It became more than just a book of faith, it became a tool of domination. What was once meant to guide and uplift, became a means to control, to keep the masses in line, and to ensure that those in power remained in power. Human manipulation of religion has been a recurring theme throughout history. People, driven by the desire for power, have twisted religious teachings to suit their needs. Religion, in its purest form, is meant to connect humans to the divine, to inspire faith, love, and compassion. However, over time, it has been shaped, distorted, and used as a tool of control. Religious leaders, throughout history, have often seen themselves as intermediaries between God and the people. This position of power gave them authority over the masses. They became the ones to interpret religious texts, to decide what was right and what was wrong. By controlling the interpretation of religious teachings, they controlled the beliefs and actions of entire societies. People were taught to trust in these leaders, to believe that they alone held the key to salvation. This created a dependency on the clergy, making it harder for individuals to question the system. The manipulation didn't stop with the clergy. Rulers, kings, and emperors quickly realized that aligning themselves with religion gave them legitimacy. They claimed divine authority, saying their rule was ordained by God. The Bible, in particular, was used to justify their reigns. It became a tool to make people believe that their leaders were chosen by God, that any challenge to their authority was a challenge to God himself. This idea of divine right made rebellion seem not only unlawful but sinful. It kept people in line, reinforcing the idea that they should obey their rulers without question. One of the most powerful tools of religious manipulation was the use of fear. Fear of punishment, fear of hell, fear of being cast out from the grace of God. These fears were often amplified by religious leaders to control the behavior of individuals. People were told that their sins would lead to eternal damnation, that only through strict adherence to religious rules could they avoid such a fate. This fear became a powerful motivator for compliance, for keeping people within the boundaries set by the religious authorities. Another method of manipulation was through the reinforcement of social hierarchies. Religion was often used to justify the status quo, to make people believe that their social position was divinely ordained. Slavery, inequality, and oppression were justified using religious texts. People were told that their suffering was part of God's plan, that they should accept their place in society. This prevented resistance and rebellion, making people feel that challenging the system was going against divine will. Religious rituals and practices, too, were manipulated to maintain control. By focusing on rituals, prayers, and ceremonies, religious leaders distracted people from questioning the deeper meanings of their beliefs. The focus shifted from personal spiritual growth to outward displays of faith. People were encouraged to obey religious rules, not necessarily because they were righteous, but because it was expected of them. This kept individuals in a state of conformity, preventing them from exploring their faith in a more personal, authentic way. In conclusion, human manipulation of religion has been a powerful tool for maintaining control. Leaders and rulers have twisted religious teachings to serve their own interests, using fear, social hierarchy, and ritual to keep people in line. By controlling the interpretation of sacred texts and creating systems of authority, they ensured their power remained unchallenged. Religion, which was meant to bring people closer to the divine, became a tool for keeping people distant from true spiritual understanding. The manipulation of religion has left a legacy of obedience, fear, and control. Awakening to the truth is a powerful, life-changing experience. It's a moment when a person begins to see the world, and their place in it, differently. It's the moment when the veil is lifted, and reality comes into sharper focus. For many, this awakening starts with questioning the things they've been taught, the things they've always believed without ever thinking twice. For a long time, people live in a kind of sleep. They follow routines, they accept beliefs without examining them, they obey without questioning. They are told what is right, what is wrong, and they simply trust that those in charge know what they are doing. They are taught what to believe about God, the world, and their purpose in life. But what happens when that trust begins to waver? What happens when doubts begin to creep in? Awakening often begins with a single question. It might be a small thing at first, a moment of curiosity, a spark of doubt, a piece of information that doesn't quite fit with everything else they've been told. That's when the journey begins. People start to look at things more closely. They read, they question, they search for answers. They no longer accept the surface-level explanations. They dig deeper, seeking the truth beneath the surface. For some, this process is slow. It's a gradual unfolding of new ideas and perspectives. For others, it's a sudden jolt, a wake-up call that shakes them to their core. The truth doesn't always come easily. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, sometimes it's painful. It's the realization that what they thought was true, what they've built their lives around, might not be the whole story. This moment of awakening can feel like a shock, like the ground beneath them has shifted. As they begin to see things clearly, they realize how much they've been manipulated. They see the patterns, the subtle ways in which the truth was hidden from them. They see the control, the way systems of power have shaped their beliefs, their actions, and their understanding of the world. The awakening brings with it a sense of liberation. No longer bound by old, false ideas, they feel free to explore new possibilities. They feel empowered to challenge the status quo, to question authority, and to seek truth for themselves. But awakening to the truth also comes with responsibility. It's not enough to simply see things clearly. One must act on that understanding. The truth can be a heavy burden to bear, but it's also a powerful force for change. Those who awaken to the truth have a responsibility to share it, to spread awareness, and to challenge the systems that keep others in the dark. It's about waking others up, too, helping them see what you now see, opening their eyes to the truth they have yet to discover. In the end, awakening to the truth is about personal growth, freedom, and empowerment. It's about breaking free from the chains of manipulation and control. It's about discovering who you really are, what you really believe, and how you can live in alignment with your true self. The truth may be uncomfortable, but it is always worth seeking. When you see things as they truly are, you gain the power to shape your own destiny. A call for rebellion and freedom is a powerful cry for change. It's the voice of those who have seen through the lies, who have awakened to the truth and refuse to stay silent any longer. It's a challenge to the systems of control, to the authorities that seek to keep people in bondage, to the powers that work tirelessly to maintain their dominance. Rebellion, in this sense, is not just about fighting for power, it's about fighting for freedom, for the right to think, act, and live without being controlled. Throughout history, there have always been those who rose up, who refused to accept the status quo. They saw the injustice, they saw the manipulation, and they refused to be part of it. They understood that freedom was not a gift to be given, but a right to be claimed. Rebellion, for them, was not about chaos or destruction. It was about the restoration of freedom, the return to truth, and the rejection of oppression. This call for rebellion is not one of violence or hatred. It's a call for awakening, for raising awareness. It's about challenging the beliefs that have been imposed upon us, questioning the narratives we've been taught, and breaking free from the mental and emotional chains that bind us. Rebellion, in this context, is about rejecting the false teachings that have kept us in a state of ignorance, fear, and submission. It's about reclaiming our own minds, our own thoughts, our own beliefs. Freedom, on the other hand, is the ability to think for oneself, to make one's own choices, and to live authentically. It's the ability to stand tall, to speak the truth, and to act in ways that align with your true self. It's not about escaping from responsibility, but about embracing the responsibility of being fully human. Freedom means rejecting control, rejecting manipulation, and rejecting anything that limits your ability to live with integrity and purpose. The call for rebellion and freedom is not just about challenging external forces, it's about challenging the internal forces, the beliefs, and the fears that hold us back. Often, we are our own worst enemies. We allow ourselves to be controlled by our fears, our doubts, and our past experiences. The first step in rebellion is to free ourselves from these internal chains, to recognize the power we have within ourselves, to see that we are not bound by anyone or anything, unless we allow it. When people rise up for freedom, they are not just fighting for themselves, they are fighting for everyone. A society that is controlled by fear and manipulation cannot truly be free. It is only when individuals begin to awaken, to see the truth, and to act on it, that true freedom can be achieved. Rebellion, in this sense, is not a violent overthrow, but a collective shift in consciousness, a mass awakening to the power of the human spirit. The call for rebellion and freedom is a call to action. It's about standing up, speaking out, and taking control of your own life. It's about breaking free from the systems that have kept you small, and stepping into your full potential. It's about rejecting the idea that you are powerless, and realizing that you hold the key to your own liberation. The world has always been changed by those who dared to rebel, to stand up for freedom, and to fight for a better world. It's time for each of us to answer that call. In the end, the truth cannot be hidden forever. People are waking up, seeing the manipulation for what it is. The Bible, once a tool for control, now serves as a reminder of the power of questioning. The world is changing, as more individuals rise to challenge the systems that bind them. The call for rebellion and freedom echoes louder each day. It is not a call for violence, but for awakening, for truth, for self-liberation. As more people embrace their power, the chains of control begin to break. Freedom is not a gift, it is a right, one that must be claimed. The fight is not over, but with every step forward, the world becomes a little freer. The truth is out, and it is ours to shape.